I'm here with Jon Partridge, who is the co-managing director of RS Sailing, and it's a company which nearly everybody in the dinghy sailing world will be familiar with. If you haven't raced an RS dinghy, you'll have certainly raced against one. And it has been hugely successful with the number of dinghies it's produced and just the infiltration into the dinghy market. So Jon, welcome.
Thank you.
Now, first of all, could you tell me a bit about how you actually got into sailing in the first place?
Yeah, so I learned to sail on the Norfolk Broads on an Easter cruise where a pile of kids took a pile of small yachts around from Broad to Broad. We would anchor up in the middle of the day and do sailing, racing and rowing racing around the fleet every day in these random clinker-built boats where we raced for a title at the end of the week, and it was truly heavenly, both the cruising, the rowing and the racing element of it. Bizarrely enough, as a pretty weeny 14-year-old, I could row really well because my dad had taught me to row, and that was my start. And then when I was 14 or so, 15, I ran for my local sailing club, which is Marchwood, which is on Southampton Water. I ended up owning a very old cadet, which I did a bit of club sailing in, a bit of club racing and a bit of cruising in, hanging out in, really.
So your first sailing was real Swallows and Amazon stuff.
Absolutely. And I guess that's where my love for kind of just being afloat came from, whether it's on a sailing boat or just on a motorboat or on a paddleboard. I just adore being on the water. I mean, my perfect world and my perfect retirement will be to end up somewhere where I don't need to own a car and I can just go everywhere by boat. That's my mission in life.
It's living the dream.
Living the dream.
So it seems your initial sailing, yes, you did a little bit of racing, but this was just races informally organised between you and your mates?
Yeah, very much so. The club stuff at Marchwood was very, very relaxed. You know, someone would start us off the beach, we'd race around some marks in Southampton Water and we'd finish, and I was always dead last because I was in this old cadet, which I didn't really know how to sail properly. But I just enjoyed being on the water. So
it didn't bother you at all, the results? It was just the feeling that you get from sailing itself? Exactly.
And then there's a couple of old fireballs in the club and I helped crew those, and it was amazing. You know, as a 15-year-old, and I was just in awe of being on the trapeze, and yeah, just enjoyed it.
And how did things progress from there with your sailing?
Well, at the age of 18, I was all due to go and work for a third world radio company called Radio Worldwide as a gap year before university, because I wanted to do sort of radio engineering because I did electronics at Sixth Form College, and for various reasons that got cancelled. They'd run out of funding for me, so I randomly had nothing to do for a year, and through a series of events, my mum met somebody. I ended up working at a sailing school in Chichester Harbour for a year, became a sailing instructor. That year turned from 1 year into 3 years. I deferred my university place a few times, and by the end thought, you know what, I don't think university is for me, and fell in love with sort of kids development and activity, and learnt to teach sailing and really enjoyed taking people sailing.
And now you've been at RS now for 21 years, I believe.
Pretty much.
How did you join the company?
So after my time at the sailing school, I did 3 years there. I went to work in a very small marina on the east coast of the UK called Tollsbury Marina, which I've still got such fond memories of. I did a year there. In that year, I learned I wasn't designed to work outside in the winter because I hated the cold. Taking boats out of the water on the tide at 6 a.m. and taking their rigs down was no fun. I literally loathed it. But in that job, I worked in the Chandler area, did a bit of yacht brokering to fill the office, and I really enjoyed the sales side of things. Enjoyed being in the industry. And at the end of that year, I realised, one, I didn't want to live on the east coast of England. I wanted to come back to the south coast. So I started applying for jobs. I ended up with a few job offers. One of them was sort of packing parcels in the RS mail order department, or LDC racing sailboats as it was then. And actually, most of you would have heard of a guy called John Derbyshire, who I know relatively well. And just before I had 3 job offers, and I phoned Jon because I used to work with his wife Di, because she worked at the sailing school. I phoned up Jon and said, okay, I got these 3 job offers, and they were working as a harbour master on the Hamble, going to work for Garmin, or packing parcels in the RS mail order department. And I said to Jon, which shall I do? I don't know what to do. And he said, if I were you, Jon, I would go and work for RS, because one day they will be the biggest small boat sailing manufacturer in the world.
And so he saw that well ahead.
In 1999, that's his opinion, and he was kind of right, and I've never looked back.
And back then it was a chandlery, it did boat repairs, various other boats, but which of the current RS range were actually produced in 99?
So when I turned up, we were building 2 RS200s, RS300s, RS600s and RS400s. And the 800, I can still remember my first day, the 2 prototype 800s were on a double stacker outside the front door, because the first 2 were quite extreme. They were all flared, and some of that styling got dulled down a little bit, and they were quite radical. So it was all about those classes. We were still still reselling B14s and Oppies at that point, and I went and worked in the mail order department.
And 21 years, things must have changed beyond all recognition at RS. Yet you've been there and progressed your way through the business the entire time.
Yeah, so it's started off pretty much at the bottom of the pile. Key people left at certain times, and it allowed me to progress. And I kind of grew as the business grew. And, we are a significantly different organisation than we were back in 99. But I think at that point, it was obviously led by Nick and Martin. And I learned, from both of those 2, I learned so much about the market. And I think, especially Nick had a real insight into how to spot gaps in the market, what boats should do, how we portray ourselves to the market. And Nick and Martin, both very different characters, but for me, Nick is the one that really kind of gave me probably the real opportunities.
Well, it probably was the whole dynamic with Nick and Martin that gave some of its success, just because you've got 2 different characters who can run ideas off each other, and you get the best of both their parts. And you've got a very similar situation now with you and Alex Newton-Southern, where you're both running the company and you've both got different ideas. Yeah,
we're very different. Alex runs all the technical part, which looks after production and development, and a part of the operations side of our business. And I concentrate more on the sales and marketing, events and finance side. So we complement each other very well. And I mean, we're really privileged because underneath us, we have a fantastic core team that help us deliver the day to day.
One of the key moments, I think, especially for you, when you talk about the youth sailing and the passion that you had when you were as an instructor and various other things, must have been when the terror and the fever came into the market. That really just brought you on to that whole youth scene as a business.
Yeah, I mean, the fever has delivered everything and more than we thought it would do. It's truly special, and it's always been my baby right in the early days when Nick and Martin realised it had a real opportunity. They realised they needed one person to kind of, you may use the word product manage it, but it wasn't even that really. It was just develop it and be a bit of continuity. The problem you have with youth classes and junior classes is volunteers, committee members come and go every 6 to 2 years to churn. So how do you put some continuity in it? And I still remember standing with Nick on the old sail loft in the old RS building, and Nick going, what we need, Jon, for the fever is someone to grab it by the scruff of the neck and get properly stuck in. And
that was you.
And I started going, and I didn't say it out loud. I went away home, and I don't know whether Nick was either being openly honest or being really manipulative, but I came back the next day and go, I think I can do that. I really want to do that. And the fever, through the work of a load of really cool volunteers, and we've had the privilege of having really cool, the Peter Robsons, the Bill Tuckers of this world, and there's loads and loads of them. The core volunteers that kind of helped us turn it into the class it is now. And I think some of the because I hadn't been through a youth squad system, we kind of said, well, how do we look at it differently? And I'm constantly thinking, how do we do it differently? How do we look at other sports and learn from them? How do we portray it? How do we make it cool? And whether people say, why is the fever attitude a little bit different? I don't know there's one single thing we've done to create that. I guess we've just got lucky. But I guess at the very beginning, we always thought, how do we do this a little bit differently? And hope, and we've created an amazing class that is truly global. I mean, I judge major championships on the number of nations, not necessarily by the number of boats. Last year in Follonica in Italy, we had 20 nations.
And also 200
boats. And we do that, and that yes, there's a handful of charter boats, and yes, for some of the smaller nations, we kind of support them to be there by helping them with charter boats or some demo boats or so. But the core,
that's great.
Yeah, but the core group are mainly Europeans that just love to come and some really cool racing and some really cool socials and just a brilliant atmosphere.
Well, having a fever now myself, I know just how good the boat is, and the kids, especially my eldest, the first few times that he was sailing it, he would wake up in the morning, and the first thing he would say is, when are we going out in the fever? When are we going out in the fever? And it just seems to be the kind of boat that kids love.
And have they kicked you out of it yet, though? Are you still allowed to sail it?
Yeah, I've got to admit, I've helmed it and I've crewed it quite a few times with both kids, and I do let him sail it with his mates as well as me. So.
It's important.
So, yeah.
Our brief was, allow parent-child combinations to get the kids into it, but we wanted to create an atmosphere that the dads or the mums were kicked out as fast as possible.
Yeah.
To allow the kids to sail with their mates, because surely that's what they want as much as possible.
To be fair, yeah, that happened pretty quickly. As soon as they all got confident enough in it, and that happened very quickly. Yeah, I was kicked out and out onto the rib.
Yeah.
And with the fever events, your support of the events, you are out on the water at nearly every fever event around the country and around the world.
Yeah, so I've done virtually every major fever event in the last 15, 16 years, major nationals and worlds or Europeans. And that's been a real privilege. We can set a tone. We've got a really cool team. I think certainly for things like Worlds, where running World Championships, for those that have done it, I will understand there is a delicate balance between how keeping a class happy, a club happy, an international race happy, a team happy, and an international jury happy. And I find at those events my role spends most of my time just making sure the various parties are happy, and everyone's doing what they should be doing. And from a family point of view, it looks like this well-oiled machine. And behind the scenes, there's some running around and just occasionally having to stroke the odd person's ego to ensure the class kind of get, and the family kind of get what they want to ensure a really good championships. And that, for those who haven't done it, running a Worlds with some big personalities is sometimes challenging, but equally we love it. And we've venues that allow it, we've really tried to bring the racing to the parents and try and live stream. We were hoping for this summer to take that to a real new level when we had a whole new plan in place. Whether because of the current situation we're going to be able to execute that plan, we're unsure at this time. But we really enjoy, as you've been involved with, streaming the racing at fever national and world level. It's a real laugh. We invite parents to come and get involved, and there's a few parents like Ian Jameson and Jane Sunderland who come and help commentate, who are just brilliant. Value for money.
And this brings me back to the 3 job choices you had. One was with a radio company. You always had a bit of a love of the whole setup that you need for creating the videos, doing the audio on the water, being able to live stream it. Has that always been a passion of yours?
I'd say I'm quite techie, and I'm not really techie. I mean, we employ a couple of RS whose technical ability just blow my mind. But I think I've tried to pull bits of technology together and learn from other industries. And also do it on a budget. I think that's where probably we've spent the most time is going, okay, we don't have 20,000 quid to go and live stream the FIFA Nationals. We have $1,000 at most. How can we do it for that kind of money? And what's the future? And we've savvily bought bits of used equipment here or there. And I say we wanted to really up the ante for this season. So I think we just spent there's a lot of time spent on YouTube, learning from other people, a way of doing it, trying on a budget.
Brilliant. So just learning really as you go along in that respect.
Exactly. And there's some good people willing to help us. So we'd lined up some really cool people for the FIFA Nationals in Weymouth, and I will be one of the disappointments if that event has to get cancelled will be the people that we had lined up to help us who through passion won't be able to help us, which is a shame.
Now, you're recently back from Sydney while we were still allowed to travel, where you had the Sydney Sail GP, and in particular the Sail GP Inspire programme out there, which RS are heavily involved with. How was it out there?
Oh man, it was my first time in Sydney, and it's fair to say Sydney is very cool. We really enjoyed. We had a great time, really good time. So we're one of the partners of Inspire, the Sail GP Inspire programme, which is an amazing opportunity for us to be involved with. For those that don't really know, it's not something you can buy your way into. You're invited by Sir Russell to be involved with, and many of our vision and passion align with Russell. So we were invited to be a part of it this time last year. We've done Cowes, we've done Marseille. Every event, Inspire event we've done has kind of got bigger and a little bit better. And Sydney was bigger and better yet again. 16 kids from local clubs, mixed crews, boys and girls, getting to race in front of Shark Island, crowded grandstand, and they get kind of ringside seats and back office tickets like you wouldn't believe.
It was incredible. This was during the RYA Dinghy Show, and my Australian SailWorld.com editor, John Curnow, was out covering the event, and he took a photo which was right beside, it was from Shark Island, looking across a fleet of RS Cat 14s and then the USA F50 just flying straight past the fleet. That must have been an experience and a half for the kids and for you.
Yeah, the kids love it. Parents love it. It's kind of why we're involved with it. It's my photos are out of this world. The opportunity, I spent most of my time during the event on Shark Island because we get the privilege to do the commentary for the live broadcast on the island, so we can talk a bit about RS, the kids, the racing that's going on. We run a pretty short, sharp format, so the kids are running kind of 5 to 10 minute races. They do some races before the event happens, and then we do a pre-show and a halftime show. For the halftime show, it's quite stressful because of the broadcast window. So we have about 12 minutes to run an 8-minute race effectively, so you kind of end up with a 5-minute race because you're always erring on the side of caution, trying to make it as short as possible. But the kids have a blast. They get to high five Ben Hensley. They spent an hour with Nathan Outridge, who was incredible. Literally the guys are amazing. At 3 events we've now done, he's the one skipper that's definitely given up the most time for the kids, talking to them about what he's doing, asking them questions, what they want to sail in the future, and he is so engaging. They get to wander around the tech site where the F50s are put together. We went on for the Inspire Cat Kids. We went on the Saturday morning, which was the last day of racing. And there's teams having their morning briefing, and there's 32 kids just wandering in and out of their tents, and no one seems to bat an eyelid. So they get real VIP treatment.
And if this isn't going to inspire kids, nothing will. But we're really lucky with our top sailors, just how accessible they are. And I remember at the Cowes Sail GP, you actually had the skippers going out on the Cat 14s with the kids.
Yeah, that was the first one. And what was hilarious, clearly, some of the skippers were a little bit miffed why they're turning up to go sailing with a bunch of kids when they could have other better things to do. And you kind of understand that. But you put those skippers in a cat, a baby one with 2 kids, and then you set up a race course, and it's like, bang, they're in the zone. They've gone, and it was so competitive, like so competitive. Like this is they switched on, and even though they're racing cat 14s rather than S50s, those skippers came off the water, like joking about the capsizes, the pitch poles, chatting with each other. They were just big kids having an amazing time, and it was amazing. All of those skippers were amazing. Yeah, they're all absolutely fantastic with the kids.
So it really is just the sailors. It doesn't really matter what you put them in; they're still going to be competitive against each other.
Yeah.
And they're still going to have a blast.
Exactly.
What an experience for the kids at the same time.
Yeah, the kids. Yeah, there was, and you get the emails and the letters afterwards, and it makes it. You go, okay, we've. The point of RS doing SailGP Inspire is 2 reasons. It's kind of global brand exposure, which it works for, and to make some mini ambassadors for life. And the idea is the 16 kids that get to take part, the 16 families, we turn them into lifelong RS fans, which hopefully the positivity soaks through sailing clubs in each of the region. And so far, we feel it really works for us, and it's a load of fun to be involved with.
Well, this brings me on to this whole sailing for life. As you know, a passion of mine is participation and getting kids to love the sport. And the RYA have recently made some quite big changes to how they've done their squad structure, so that they are supporting more at a club level. The RS Terror and the Fever have always been slightly detached from the traditional squad routes. But what are your views on the changes that have been made, and do you think it's going to have a positive effect on participation and just getting those kids to make that leap into adult sailing?
Look, I think we all want more kids to be hanging around their own sailing clubs. I'm a member of Parkstone Yacht Club in Poole. I hang out there at the weekend because we've got, whether it's in the motorboat or whether it's racing the RS 400, and just hanging around. The kids do a bit of fever sailing or a bit of terror sailing. So I think there isn't a club in the country that doesn't want more vibrant youth activity going on at club level. If the new RYA scheme can create a more regional stay at your club and go sailing culture, I think that is hugely powerful for our sport. And I think all those things that Steve Cockrell was talking about learning from the older guys in the club, being beaten by them, messing around with them, having banter with the older guys in the club as he was learning, wouldn't it be great if some of that came a little bit more back into our sport, rather than we have this complete divide between junior, then youth, and then adult, and bring it back to what Steve was describing his youth was, because we understand, I fully get why at some point the very best need to be filtered off to create us Olympic medals. And I fully understand that funds a good proportion of the elite end of our sport and which soaks down to the grassroots. But if we can find a way to create amazing regional activity, I think that is going to be massive for our sport.
But I've been talking with a lot of the top sailors, and so many of them actually initially didn't come in the squad route, didn't even come in from racing. They just came in from going out for a blast initially, or just going out for a sail. And so it does tend to tie in with just build that club structure, make the whole levels of the club go up higher first, and then of course a few are going to end up being really, really good, but maybe siphon them off a bit later in the process.
Well, and that does tie in with other sports. As a sports fan, which I am, I could watch any sport. I could even watch NASCAR. Which drives my wife bonkers. I just love watching sport on telly. I think, I don't know the exact number, but if you go back to the 2016 England World Cup football squad, quite a few of those players did not come through the traditional Premiership academies. Quite a few of them came through non-league football. The same applies to the current crop of England cricketers. Certainly the Norwegian winter sports model is all about club, and then you 15, 16-year-olds, you can find your winners, you can find your Olympians. So I think we've just got to make the pool bigger. It's a triangle. It's always going to be a triangle. So the bigger the base of the triangle, the more you're going to squeeze into the top end. I mean, it's not rocket science, is it? So it's all about just making that pool massive. And whether they sell Oppies or Terrors or Fevers or Toppers or if you're in Parkstone, the godforsaken AB, it doesn't matter really. You know, club strong fleets, club level sailing, the good guys will come to the forefront, if that makes sense.
It does.
Which is kind of what the rest of sport does. So, you know, I'm quietly, even though the new system will come with its challenges, and some of that's going to be around ages, and how classes that go wider than the RWA ranges, like the Top and the Fever do, and how we run class activity alongside the RWA activity, that's going to be challenging for both the RWA and the classes and the regions. But fundamentally, if we can have this amazing pool of young sailors just loving being on the water and going sailing and racing, then that's only going to feed into good things for the sport and the industry. Because actually, the thing that's going back to Inspire, the thing that we love about Inspire, it's also about the careers program, and it's about what careers are there in our industry. Because I love our industry, I think it's brilliant. It is no longer a cottage industry.
Yes.
It's a proper industry with lots and lots of opportunity in events, in marketing, in manufacturing, even in accounts, in everywhere. There's proper roles in our industry, and actually, there is a perception, I think, among some younger sailors that to be involved with our sport, you can get an Olympic medal. That's the only option for you.
It's so much wider.
But actually, whether you want to teach sailing and whether there's you want to be involved with it, whether you want to run events, whether, whatever, actually there's a vast opportunity nationally and internationally to have a brilliant career in it. And I'm really, really good friends with Saskia. And she started her Olympic campaign exactly the same time as I started at RS.
Yes. And
what's funny is I became MD when she got a gold medal, and it's funny,
the parallels
are completely different routes, but she got to her goal, which happened to be a gold, and I was never a good enough sailor to go proper racing, but actually I wanted to be involved with the coolest sailboat brand in the world, and I've had the privilege now to lead it, and with Alex and a cool group, and actually I've benefited so much from our brilliant industry. And therefore, this pool of young sailors we're going to create actually will help drive our industry for the future. They may not win Olympic medals, but they may be involved with RS or with Rooster, or they're going to come work for Yacht and Yachting, be involved with the media, or they're going to help run Cows Week, or all those things. Or they're going to be a pro sailor on a J70. They're going to join the F50 circuit with SailGP. There's so many opportunities that. Actually, that group of young people are going to be so important to where our industry is in 10 years' time.
Right now, we're going through a really tricky time. We've got the coronavirus out there, and everyone's having to adapt to a completely new situation. What have you done so far at RS Sailing to handle things in the upcoming months?
Well, we've done a lot of things. We're going into really uncharted territory, waters. No one knows quite what it looks like in terms of longevity and the effect. So you kind of can only prepare for the worst. I mean, from an internal point of view, we had a brilliant team just making sure from a health and safety side we've been covering off everything we can do to protect our staff and our customers. As of this morning, 20 of our team are all now working from home through the government guidance, and it's a testament to our business that everything we've been developing for the last few years in terms of IT infrastructure and the ability to work remotely is kind of paying off.
Suddenly coming into its own.
It wasn't too much of a hassle for everybody to pick up laptops and monitors and clear off home with a bit of chicory-pokery with the phone system, which I don't think is quite sorted yet. But from that side, we can set up. We're winding down some of our costs to prepare ourselves because it's going to have an effect. We've got a brilliant dispatch and workshop team and operations team who are still in the office. We've still got orders to get out the door, and as of yet, not too much has been delayed, but we just don't know the effect. It's going to have an effect. We know that. And for us, it's about kind of limiting the effect as much as we can, and still, hopefully, even with everything going on, the ability for people wanting to go aerosailing and just hang it or whatever, just to get on the water while we're not in complete lockdown, and still following the kind of guidance the government are offering. We're kind of celebrating that at the moment because we don't quite know how long longer we will just be able to go for a sail for fun, so to speak. And equally, we don't know when we're going to come out the other side of it. 'Cause we will come out the other side of it. So it's going to be tough. We know as a business it's going to hurt at points. We think we're solid enough. We know we're solid enough to survive it. We know we've got an amazing group of loyal customers that we know that will help us through it. And I think, and we've got a really cool bunch of staff team that will adapt, really adapt. And I think the moment for me yesterday, one of my younger members of my staff team came to me and goes, "John, if it gets really bad, I don't mind working for free."
Wow.
And you're just like, "Oh, you've got my back, man." And I don't think it's going to be that bad. And I'm putting my arm around him. I did put my arm around him because we're not allowed to touch. But we welcome the sentiment, and hopefully it will get nowhere near that. But it's going to get hard. The reason why the government have put a pile of extreme measures in to support businesses, they know it's going to get tough.
Yes.
It's from it's gone from the diversity of running RSs. I spent 3 weeks ago, I was in Sydney helping run the Inspire program, which is a load of fun. And then you kind of get off a plane and life goes back to normal pretty quickly. And now we're running models, we're looking at all the finances, reviewing everything on a daily basis, and it's just kind of head down, trying to get as much out the door as in terms of production out the door as we can, staying in contact with our suppliers, ensuring it's important they stay stable as well, because we need them as much as they need us. But hopefully at some point we're going to see the end of this, and people can go racing again, people can go training again, people can go learning to sail again, and at some point life is going to go back to normality.
On Sunday night I wrote an article about just getting out on the water to relieve stress, and I passionately believe that sailing is the best thing that you can possibly do just to escape the stresses of the world. And I really hope that can continue for as many sailors as possible during these hard times.
I agree. I think I've heard of sailing clubs that have shut up shops but left the changing rooms unlocked.
Yeah.
And let's hope that is a common theme across our network, across the clubs, so people can still in a safe way access the water and go sailing, and just because at some point we're going to need a break from the doom and gloom. And we fully understand how serious the severity of where we're at, but we've got to carry on.
We are in a sport where social distancing can be maintained, just as long as we follow the government guidelines, of course, but there must be ways that we can get out still on the water.
Exactly. I'm quite a slow 400 sailor, so I'm used to social distancing because I'm not near the front.
Brilliant.
So it celebrates the slow sailors. We're good at that.
Okay, a great way maybe of keeping the distance from others. And this year, of course, there is huge disruption in the calendar already. But we'll hope either summer, I think we all do, that things can get back to normal. What have you got lined up for the year for the RS classes?
So it's a full-on year. I mean, one of the highlights we're aiming at is Travemünde Woche, which is the end of July, which for us was an event that got a little bit out of hand. It started off with the Fever Worlds, which could be a 200 bow event. And then the Terrors, which unfortunately have just cancelled their Worlds in South Africa, they decided they wanted their Europeans a few days before, so we bolted down the front. And then through the growth of the Aero Youth class, we decided to run an Aero Youth Worlds at the same time as the Fevers, because that seemed like a good thing to do, because we're all there anyway, so why not? And then the RS 500 class asked, well, can we come along? And we kind of said, well, why not? And then the RS Venture Para Sailing in Germany wanted a bit of activity, so like, why don't we do it at Travemünde Woche, because you're all there. So we thought, okay, let's have that as well. Why not? We're in deep here, so why does it really matter to have one more class? And then to top it all off, we're meant to be running a Champions League qualifier in RS 21s, which we're not directly involved with, apart from supporting them with some additional boats to make the numbers work. So that was going to be a full-on event, and hopefully still, fingers crossed, will still be well. And our attitude for that event is we fully understand that there's a chance it may not happen.
Yeah.
But until we're told it's not happening, from our planning and our organisation, we're not slowing down, and we're going to work as hard as we can to ensure that if it goes ahead, that will be a truly remarkable event. But of course, we've got the RS Aero main World Championships are in North America, the Gorge, which is iconic and exciting.
What a venue.
The RS 200 Nationals are in Filey, which I think will be that's going to be really special.
Yeah.
Filey's a brilliant little club. And then we've got a busy autumn with like British Keelboat League finals, which were meant to be in the Royal Southern, and again we had a conference call last night around the British League and what the effect is, and we've unfortunately had to cancel the first event, which is at Queen Mary, which was the first weekend of May, and we are going to be making decisions, and we've also had a discussion around, well, what happens if we can't go sailing to August, around kind of a reduced timetable but more boats and more participation options for a shorter kind of BKL season. So we had some vague discussions around that last night. So it's busy, and with all this going on, it's really hard to get your mind around it. Yesterday I was involved with some discussions around the Aero 2021 Worlds, which are going to be in Malchesney on Lake Garda. Our Fever Worlds in New Zealand are meant to be taking place this Christmas coming up. And they've kind of been put on hold for us to assess what's going to happen over the coming weeks. I mean, if it looks like after 2 or 3 months of this we're coming out of seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, there may be a pile of people that are really keen to get to New Zealand and a bit of a break from the norm, or there is the possibility to postpone that event for a year if we had to. So we're being really open-minded there, and we're working on the Fever Worlds or Europeans, and that, depending on what title we give it, depends on what goes on New Zealand. Could be with the Aeros at Malchesney as well the week before. For us, tying events together makes our life easier in terms of resource. So there's a pile of stuff going on, and obviously we've got the Resolute Cup coming at New York Yacht Club with RS 21s in September. And a lot of work's gone into that, and we really hope
that'd be huge.
That can happen. And of course, while this is all going on in the background, we've got another RS Games in Weymouth. WPNSA 2022, and we've taken last time it was almost a 24-day program, which was,
well, you've booked out the whole WPNSA for the month,
which was too long. So we're basically going to run pretty much the same calendar. We've just found a way to ram it into 13 days to make it bigger and more vibrant.
Well, the venue can take that number of
Yeah, and with the expertise of Pete Allen and Peter Saxton, who have questioned some stuff but ran with others, have really worked with us and we're now working and pinning down the detail of that event so it can be run in a shorter time, more vibrant, more classes on site any one moment in time, and truly excited to do that again, like what we did in 2018. So it's relentless of what we've got planning and what's coming on. In the meantime, we try and sell a few boats while all this is going on. And I think the fact that we've got a brilliant sort of back office team, sales team that allow the bigger picture stuff to be done while the everyday just continues is a testament to the staff we have back at HQ.
Well, John, it's clear right now you've first of all got all of the contingency planning with RS, and then the growing of that business, the contingency planning and the planning itself of all of the events. So you've got a lot on at the moment, but thank you very much indeed for your time, for telling us what's going on, how it's happening, and what you're doing. And the thing that really shines through with everything is your passion for sailing, and how that just stems throughout the whole of RS Sailing, as you said, with your staff members saying, well, if it gets bad, I'll work for free.
Well, I think the core, the beauty of RS is the vast majority of people that work in the business are sailors. The company, over 50% of the company is owned by the internal staff team. Not all of them, but the selection of the staff team. And that's really important for us. We are real people, we're real sailors, we just love our sport, and we don't want to change that. And I think that puts us in a good position. We think we've got a good understanding of of the market. And yeah, we are going to have a tricky few months, but I'm an alternative. I'm the optimist, and there's got to be the other side of this where there's the opportunity, and maybe through the corona outbreak, people will get less international travel. As Steve Cockrell was telling on your last, a bit more clubs. Wouldn't we all love there to be more club sailing? I mean, absolutely. If there was one thing benefit from it, if we ended up with reinvigorated club sailing, whether it's Sunday mornings or Wednesday evenings, wouldn't that be amazing for our sport? Wouldn't that be maybe open meetings aren't going to be quite the same for the next year. They're probably not, and lots of international events are going to get disrupted. So, is the upside of this? We come out with a bit more vibrant club activity. I mean, wouldn't we all just take that? Wouldn't that be a benefit to our sport?
Definitely. There will be light at the end of the tunnel. And John, if people have the passion for sailing that you've shown here, then we will come out of it fine. So, John, many thanks indeed for your time.
Thank you.